Narotamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tito Jayudyarat. Nashta Prayasho Badreshu Nityam Bhagada Sevaya Bhagatiutamashoki Bhaktir Bhavdi Naistaki. Nigamalka Paturgaritam Param Shukam Makaramita Dravisamitam Pivata Bhagatam Rasham Araya Mahora Horisiku Bhavakaham. Krishna
Nityam Bhagata
Swadam
Sevaya
Pagade
Bhagatiutamashoki
Dhamananisha
Bhamaraya
Karunashta Dvishamesha Paranako Dunodyataham. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinu Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantara the Kantana Mostate Jayatam Shurito Pango Mama Mandir Matergati Matsavasha Parambo Jarada Madara Mohanam Sriman Rasa Rasaram Vamsi Vada Karsan Venoshanupaka Gopinata Sri Saram Divyad Vrindarani Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Shimashanishto Sri Sri Radha Shila Govinda Prasadabi Sevimanashmarami Namo Brahmani Devaya Go Brahmani Tad Chagati Taya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Maham Mangalang Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gurutajaja Mangalam Padari Kaksha Mangarayatani Om Narayanaya Vidmahi Vasudevaya Dimhi Tano Vishnu Prachodhyate Om Mahadevi Chavidnahi Vishnu Patni Chadimhi Tano Lakshmi Prachodhyate Mahalakshmi Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Suresri Hari Priya Namastubhyam Namastubhyam Nidayana Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Praskadade Sarasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasiri Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Good morning, Brent and Kelly, so far, having come on board for Wisdom Wednesday. A little bit of current affairs. We have arriving from India today at noon, Salt Lake City Airport, Dinanath Prabhu, devotee from Bengal, who will be coming to help us keep the doors of the Salt Lake City Temple open during the morning and afternoon. And then on December 11th, he'll be followed by Gopinath Priya, another devotee. So the pair of them will work in tandem to keep our Salt Lake City Temple. We have very well attended Saturday programs. From 7 to 8:30, we get an average of about 100, 120 people. But unfortunately, because of lack of resident devotees, we have had the temple closed 90% of the time for the last year and a half or so. So we're very excited about getting the help we need to keep the temple open and accessible to the public from basically 7 in the morning till 8 at night every day. Right now, it's only open from 6 in the evening till 8 at night. So we're excited about this expansion. We're also excited about what should be the last session on the 10th verse in the 3rd chapter of the 8th canto. There were 28 prayers, which Gajendra the elephant recalled from his previous life as Indradumna. And we're finishing up, I think, the last 2 lines in the 10th. So there are another 18. And we probably spent 4 or 5 sessions just on this 10th verse alone. There's so much nectar in there. So the last 2 lines of this verse, Namo Giram Viduraya Manasas Chetashamashi. Gajendra is talking about the tongue, the ability to speak, and consequently to glorify the Lord with our tongue. He's talking about holding the thoughts of the Lord, holding the Lord within our manasa, within our mind. And he's also talking about chetasha, keeping the Lord within our consciousness. And he's telling us that we're saying to the Lord, declaring that we don't have the power to glorify you adequately. We don't have the power to make the sounds which translate into Uttama Shloka, beautiful poetry and prose, glorifying your transcendental qualities. We don't have the ability to capture you with our minds. Our minds are too limited, and you're beyond the reach of the senses. Granted that the topmost of all the senses is the mind. The mind is called the king of the 5 other senses. Nevertheless, having said that, the mind still is too weak of a tool to be able to capture and to hold the Lord within the mind. So the tongue is incapable of making sounds and communicating on its own. It's just a piece of flesh with no particular qualities or attributes. And the mind is whimsical, it's capricious, it's harder to control than the wind, which is a term that Arjuna used in the Bhagavad Gita. So Gajendra is reaffirming the theme, which we've come back to time and time again in the last few weeks, that on our own powers, it's not possible to elevate to the level of God consciousness. It's not possible for us to do anything to properly glorify the Lord, to properly think of the Lord, or to properly serve the Lord. And the example is given of a ladder. At the bottom of the ladder, the lower rungs of the ladder, are the senses, the five senses: hearing, touching, tasting, smelling. And the next ladder, the next to the lowest ladder, is the mind. The mind is the sixth sense, and it controls the other senses. And above the mind is the buddhi, the intelligence. And above the buddhi is the soul, and above the soul is the Paramatma. You recall last two times we talked about how it is that both Gajendra and the gopis refer to Krishna as the Paramatma in a little bit of an accusatory mood, inasmuch as the Paramatma stays hidden. Even if you're in fire, even if you're drowning, the Paramatma does not come out externally to save the person who's burning thirst and drowning. The gopi said, we're burning the fire of limitation, we're drowning in the separation of you, and it's been so long, and yet you still have not appeared, in spite of our prayers, in spite of our having endured this suffering over a prolonged period of time. You're obdurate, you're not going to give up your position of being hidden within the heart. And it's also significant to note that although the Krishna is hidden within the heart and we can't see him, he sees us. So he sees what the devotee goes through, the prolonged suffering, the intensity of the suffering. And yet as the Paramatma, he's known for, generally speaking, keeping himself hidden within the heart, no matter what the provocations are. But there are exceptions. There are exceptions. He came out before Madhavendra Puri. He came out before Dhruva Maharaj. And he's going to, I don't want to spoil this story for you, but I think you already know how it is. He's also, the Lord is going to make an exception for Gajendra and come out from inside. And in fact, although the Lord has this rule that he remains hidden, this modus operandus, that he sees everything we're doing, but at the same time remains invisible to us, he actually, when you think about it, he makes quite a few exceptions. In fact, he declares himself vulnerable to his devotees. He'll break his own promise. He'll break his own standard mode of operation in order to intervene on behalf of his devotees. I told this story in the past about Akbar, who was a very powerful Mughal king of India. And one time he was walking along the canal there in Delhi, and he had all of his generals and bodyguards with him, and he also had his little 3-year-old son. So at some point during the walk, the little 3-year-old son stumbled and tripped, and he went into the canal. Now, as the king of the world, as a vastly powerful man, his normal reaction would be to tell one of his bodyguards, go and get the boy. He would keep around him the youngest, most powerful, the best swimmers, the best jumpers, the best runners, the best athletes. These would have comprised his inner circles, inner bodyguard. And any one of them could have easily jumped in and retrieved the young boy. What to speak of, even rising to higher challenges. They were the most amazing athletes of the whole kingdom. And normally the king, being the king, would order them. That's his job. His job is to order them, and they follow. That's the relationship. And that's how he rolled. You can imagine, hundreds, if not thousands of other occasions, he'd given each and every one of his uh, amazingly fit, athletic bodyguards and entourages orders, and they would have um, risked their lives. They would throw their life right into the task without any personal consideration of holding back because they wanted to please the king. But in this case, he broke all protocol. He did something completely unexpected to his bodyguards and all. As the bodyguards and his generals stood around completely amazed, completely dumbfounded, they're thinking like, why didn't you ask us to do this? That's what you usually do. That's what we're used to. That's what we're trained to do. What happened was the king himself jumped into the canal. He wasn't as young. He wasn't as fit. In many ways, he wasn't as capable as any of the people around him of saving his little son from the water. But he made an exception. He couldn't help himself. He didn't even think of calling in one of his um, servants to do this because of love, because of spontaneity, because of the pull of his heartstrings towards that little 3-year-old boy. He just jumped in. He didn't even have a choice in the matter. He didn't think, I'm a king. I'm supposed to order them. They're supposed to serve. They're more qualified to save the boy. He he forgot all of that. All of that went out the window, and he just jumped in without even thinking. That's God. That's God for you. That's a great example to show how God is attached to his devotees. So Gajendra is he's on good, solid ground, asking Krishna, or the Paramatma from within, to make an exception. The Lord never comes out. We never see him. But then again, 999,999 people are not God conscious. They're not putting Krishna God first place. They're not honoring him by chanting his holy names. So therefore, it's pretty much a universal rule that nobody sees him, that he never comes to save you, because you've made your own choices, and whatever your individual choice have been made, overall, we who are in this material world have basically made one general choice, which is to leave God and to uh, distance ourselves from his protection and go it on our own. And so Krishna honors our choice. He's doing what we want when he doesn't come to our rescue. He's doing what we want when he remains invisible. We don't want to see the Lord in our daily life. We want him to stay hidden. Of course, when we're in trouble, we don't want him to stay hidden. We want him to come out, save us from trouble, but then we want him to go back into hiding after. We don't want him cramping our style. We're envious of him. Every living being who has a body in this material world, from Brahma to the ant, is here for one reason. We've got these suits, these prison suits. Remember in the old cartoons, the prisoners always used to wear these striped suits. I don't know when saffron became fashionable, but in the old days, they would wear these striped suits. Ridiculous. So and when you saw someone with a striped suit, you knew he'd done something wrong. He'd made bad choices. He chose not to be a good citizen, not to follow the laws, not to get along, but he chose to be a disruption. He chose to make his own laws, march to his own drumbeat, and that put him out of sync with society in general. Therefore, he ends up in these suits, these striped suits of the convicts. So we've all got these suits. They're made of earth, air, fire, water, flesh, blood, bile, mucus, urine. And you can't, someone in a striped suit can't pass himself off as innocent, as normal, as a contributing member of society. You won't believe anything he says. You know that everything he says is a lie because he's wearing the suit, and he wouldn't be wearing the suit if he was a good, honest citizen. So don't believe anybody who has a material body. They may talk and have a great vocabulary. They may express lofty sentiments of selfishness and compassion and regard, They may present themselves as very noble-minded and with the best interests of people in general at heart, but don't believe them because they've got a material body. And everybody who has a material body has that body because they're envious of the position of the Supreme Personality of God. So it's true to say that for 999,999 out of a million, yeah, God as Paramatma is invisible. God as Paramatma sees us, but we don't see him because that's actually what we asked him to do, to stay hidden, not to cramp our style. And we told him that we'll take care of things. We don't need you. So he respects that. He gives us our space and lets us deal with this material world on our own. Therefore, we come into this situation where we have material senses, we have a material mind, we have material intelligence, and although we're spirit, we're weighed down. We're not buoyant. We don't float naturally, unfettered back to the spiritual world because we've assumed all this ego, all this lust, all this pride, all this independence. So it has pushed us down, and we're held down, we're anchored down by the five senses, the mind, the material intelligence, and that keeps the soul, you might say, on the bottom of the lake. Now, looking from the bottom to the top or working up the ladder, you'll never reach Krishna. No matter how far up the ladder you manage to climb by philosophical speculation, by yoga, by austerities, by piety, by church going, by philanthropy, by altruism, by humanism, no matter how you try to pull yourself up that ladder, you'll never reach Krishna. He'll always be at least one rung ahead of you. We talked about how Mother Yashoda tried to bind Krishna with the rope, but the rope was always two finger widths too short. So from the bottom of the ladder, you can't understand what's on the top of the ladder. The definition of this Paramatma is that he's high up on the ladder. And above Paramatma, above this localized aspect of the Lord within the heart, is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with a divine, unlimitedly powerful, unlimitedly beautiful, unlimitedly knowledgeable divine form. And that form is accessed only by those who surrender to him in devotion. Otherwise, those who are controlled and bound up by the lower parts of the ladder, who have accepted a material body with material senses and who think of things in a material way, in a way that's colored with greed and lust and self-interest and anger and independence and envious, they cannot, from the lower rungs of the ladder, it's not possible to catch things which are higher on the ladder. And therefore, again, as we've said so many times recently, by our own efforts, we cannot reach God. But that does not mean that from the highest point of the ladder, Bhagavan cannot, if he sees that rare individual soul, 1 in a million, who's chanting the holy name with a pure heart. What is it? What does it say? Lord Krishna, define comprehension, your actions divine, beyond human dimension, beyond human dimension. Your nirguna. What is that verse? Lord Krishna, the Supreme Person, define comprehension, his actions divine, beyond the human dimension, saving the devotees, lifting to the light, annihilating the demons, ending their blight. Both get liberation, a transcendental fate. Devotees go straight to the Lord's abode, while the others wait in the impersonal zone. So Krishna has the power, as the all-powerful Bhagavan, from the top of the ladder to reach down a helping hand, or to lower an inner tube, or lower a rope, or lower a lifeboat, in such a way that he can pull us up from the lower ladder to the upper levels. He can bring us eye to eye with him. We can't achieve that on our own, but for him, anything is possible. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami, Prabhupada's guru, was famously quoted as saying, "Do not act in such a way that you can see God, but act in such a way that God becomes interested in seeing you." Gajendra is saying more or less the same thing. He says the tongue cannot catch Bhagavan, but if Bhagavan decides, he can catch the tongue. Think of the tongue. We make audible sounds. We make sounds. From where those sounds come, what is it that enables sound to come from our vocal cords? The vocal cords, I don't know what they do. They bang together, maybe like bamboos in the wind. And the result of their interacting like that is that there's sound. Now it's explained that when they interact, just like when bamboos bump against each other in the wind, there's fire, there's sparks. Oftentimes a thicket of bamboos will burn itself down because of the sparks that the bamboos themselves created by knocking against each other in the wind. So similarly, fire is present in our vocal cords. Fire is Agni. Agni is an expansion of Krishna. He's a demigod who is in charge of fire, and he comes from Krishna. Therefore, our speaking ability is not ours. Every sound we make is by the grace of God. It's really God speaking. So we can't glorify God on our own. We can't even say Haribo on our own. But the key to being successful in spiritual life is to not impede the flow. There's a natural flow from Agni, the fire god, who's a servant of the Lord, to glorify the Lord. There's a natural impulse. Even animals, they celebrate God. They celebrate by the birds get up every morning and they're chirping and glorifying God and delighted. The sunrise, new day, new things. We have a scarlet macaw, and when he wakes up every morning, he's like, he can't wait to get out. If the weather's nice, we have a nice outdoor aviary. By Bobby created a nice aviary. They've got all kinds of branches, and there's the beautiful aroma of lilac trees there. There's the sound of the waterfall, the chirping of other birds. So in the summer, the birds, Bhaskar and Pedro, Radha, and they love to go out in the outdoor aviary. Right now, it's about 50 degrees during the day, and so we're not putting them in the outside aviary, but we try to bring one or two of them up every day in the temple. And they like that too. They've got their perches and got their food and water bowls, and they like to see people coming and going. Most of the guests make a big deal out of the birds, and they love the attention. So after 10 or 12 hours of being in their inside, when it's time to take them outside, whether it's to the aviary, where they're going to be with the elements and with their fellow aviary friends during the day, or whether it's going to be in the temple where they can interact with people, they're excited. They're excited. They're up. Particularly our scarlet macaw, he has this exclamation. He goes, "Oh!" He's so excited that when you're carrying, he's going, "Oh, oh!" And sometimes he says, to express his happiness, he says, "La la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la." He's so excited about the coming day, what the day has to hold for him. Every creature, the ones that speak, acknowledge and glorify and celebrate God with various sound vibrations. The parrots don't have a language. They can't speak fluently and coherently and communicatively, but they can express their emotions. They can express their excitement. They can glorify God in their own way through sound vibration. And others that aren't capable of sound, they glorify God by swimming. Dolphins, they chirp and they cavort in the waters, birds, you look up, you see birds just uh, diving and climbing. Sometimes the hawks will just let themselves, when it's windy, the hawks will just let themselves go in the winds. Wherever you look, God is glorified. God is celebrated. The whole creation glorifies and celebrates God. So in a sense, it's God giving back to himself. It's a full circle. God creates us. He breathes life into us. He gives us bodies chosen amongst the 8,400,000 species of life, which correspond to our psychological condition at the present moment. Um, he he provides for us with food and shelter and means of transportation. He brings us amongst those who have our best interests in heart, father, mother, parents, brothers, and sisters. He does all of this for us. And basically, it's God completing the circuit, God extending himself down to us. And then if we're simple and unsophisticated, then all of that flows back to God. So there's outgoing and incoming, AC, DC. And when you get into that flow of receiving and automatically and reflexively giving back with your voice and with your mind and with your words, you're open. You're part of the universal flow of God's love back to God himself. So Krishna cannot resist someone who's opened themselves up to the spontaneous flow of words and actions and deeds which glorify and give back to God, and acknowledge what he's given to us. In the Bhagavad Gita, this statement is made, Natad bhasyate shiro nashashanka yadgatvanadvartate taddama paramamaha. Krishna describes the spiritual world as that place there is no sunlight, there's no moonlight, there's no electricity. So we have some descriptions of the spiritual world. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's just general statements like this one. But if you read the other literatures, there's a very specific and extremely detailed descriptions of the spiritual world. And part of those descriptions describe how Radharani does worship of the sun in order to get more Krishna devotion. Part of the descriptions of the spiritual world describe how in the moonlight, in the full moonlight, the gopis leave their homes, leave their husband, leave their children, find their way out of the house, wend their way through the dark autumnal jungle trails and join Krishna on the full moon night for the Rasa Lila. We read in these descriptions of the spiritual world how Mother Yashoda calls Krishna in. Krishna's playing with his playmates. Krishna, come, Balaram, come for your lunch. I cooked sag paneer. I cooked mata paneer. I cooked kachoris. So if there's no fire, how is it that Yashoda cooks for Krishna? If there's no moon, how is it that the devotees have the Rasa Lila in the moonlight? If there's no sun, how is it that Radharani does Surya Puja in order to please Krishna? Arti, they're also doing arti to Krishna, and that requires offering fire, water, and so there is sun, there is moon, there is fire in the spiritual world, but it's not fire as we know it here. The moon in the spiritual world is the actual moon. The moon in this material world is just a symbolic representation of the mind. The fire in this material world is a symbolic representation which appears in the throat. A portion of the sun is in the eye. Without the sun being present within the eye, we could not see the sun. So we see the sun by the grace of the sun. Without a portion of the fire god being within the throat, we couldn't speak. And so it's due to the grace of the fire god that we can speak, we can make sounds, which then direct our attention, direct our glorification to the Lord. And it's also explained that a portion of the moon is in the mind. So it's by the grace of Chandra, the demigod in charge of the moon, that we're able to conceive of thoughts and have an active mental life. So in every case, speaking, seeing, thinking are by the grace of the demigods. The demigods exist as servants of the Lord. They're expansions of the Lord. So you see a pattern here. You see a trend here. You were the beneficiary of so many blessings from our all-powerful, loving Father. The whole onus, the whole secret to being able to glorify the Lord properly is see him face to face, and to have him take up residence permanently in our mind is to just let go. It's not that you're doing anything. When you chant, you're not glorifying the Lord. You're not impressing the Lord. You're chanting to let go. The chanting brings you to a point where you let go. You let go. You stop trying to control the mind. You stop trying to control your vision. You stop trying to control your speech, but you're really letting Krishna take over your mind, your seeing, and your speech. And that's what bhakti is all about. It's letting Krishna flow back to himself. The ability to see the sun comes from the sun. The ability to think comes from the moon. The ability to speak comes from Agni. Otherwise, through the sun, through the moon, through the eyes, we don't independently have the ability to think, to speak, or to see. It's only due to the grace of the demigods. Now, here's another example that shows the impossibility of with our limited vision on the bottom of the ladder, dependent upon the demigods for the most basic of functions. Another example about how we could never on our own force the Lord to reveal himself to us. Unless we're Krishna conscious, unless we're pure devotees, Krishna is not going to make an exception of his rule that he always remain hidden, and that now while he witnesses us, we can never witness him. Here's the example. Someone said Elon Musk has so much money, or Bill Gates, or Jeff Bezos, or Mark Jurgensmeyer. They have so much money that if you translated their wealth into $1 bills and put them end to end, they would go to the moon and the back. They would go to the moon and back. That would be more $1 bills than you could count in an entire lifetime. Now, another thought is that not only their current wealth, if it was translated into $1 bills, would be too many $1 bills for them to count in their lifetime. You also have to consider that every second they're making more money. Every dollar they have is making $3 every half a minute or every minute. So every second that you spend counting one bill, he made 3 more. See what I'm saying? Therefore, it is impossible for Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, it's impossible for them to count their wealth. As you're counting 1 plus 1 equals 2, plus 1 equals 3, plus 1 equals 4, plus 1 equals 5, in the time it took you to count this $5, $15 came into your account. So how are we going to measure, encompass, understand, comprehend God when he's always expanding, when he has more qualities than we can imagine, and at every moment his qualities are expanding? It's inconceivable. Gunatmadestevi gunammitami tavanisha karisha kadinirva bupamsige myad yabushaha. In the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, scientists may one day know how many stars there are in the sky, how many atoms, atomic molecules there are on this earthly planet, how many grains of sand there are in the beach, how many atoms of water there are in the ocean. They may be able to count them, but they'll never be able to count my glories. Because even if you had a lifespan sufficient to count the glories of the Lord, they're not static. They're dynamic. They're always expanding, just like the universe. Universe is always expanding. It's always expanding. The rays of the sun are always expanding. Your devotion, your innate bhakti, your essence is meant to be always expanding, always moving forward. Material life means a beginning, a middle, and an end. It means that whatever is begun, it will end. Whatever is come into being will then dissipate in due course of time. Spiritual life is the opposite. If material life means everything that's begun comes to an end, spiritual life means everything is beginningless. And because it's beginningless, it's also endless. It never contracts. It continues to expand. Krishna himself cannot even describe or remember all of his incarnations. He, for instance, you recall a couple of weeks ago when Krishna's cowherd boyfriends saw the Aghasura demon on the path. His mouth was open like a cave, and foul odors were coming from his mouth. So the boys, notwithstanding the foul odors and notwithstanding their suspicions that this mountain cave was more than meets the eye, they saw an adventure here, and they went right into the mouth of the serpent. And the serpent kept his mouth open because he was waiting for Krishna to come in. Krishna was the purpose by which he'd come to Vrindavan. So there's a nice brief description there that Krishna stands there and he just marvels at the actions and interactions of his external energy. What to speak of his spiritual energy, which is unlimited and ever expanding. He's looking at the Aghasura demon and saying, that's cool. That's really awe-dropping. That's really inspiring. This big snake, and his jaws are as big as the sky, and it resembles a mountain cave. And Krishna's like getting a kick out of observing his own energies. They're nothing more than the expansions of his energy, but the expansions of his energies are unlimited. And they're expanding unlimitedly. And so nobody enjoys God's creation more than God. Even he is surprised and delighted by the new things that are generated from his unlimitedly potency. Gajendra's, he gets it. He gets it. He's an elephant, but he's overcome the limitations of his dull, slow-moving, elephantine body. He's now Krishna. Even a devotee falls from the path, Krishna, the heart, keeps track. From within the heart, he takes up the slack. He carries what you lack. He will get you back home, back to Godhead. So in terms of consciousness, Gajendra is no longer limited by the consciousness of an elephant. By the grace of the Lord, his consciousness is expanding once again. It had remained stable. He had gotten stuck there for a while, but now he's moving again. It's like a train. A train sometimes comes to a stop because up ahead there's an intersection and there are other trains going through that intersection. So in order to avoid a collision, the train has to slow down from 60 miles an hour to a full stop and wait. And then when it gets the signal that the intersection is cleared, then it resumes. So Gajendra has been at a stop for some time in the elephant body as a result of the curse from his previous life. But now the train is started up again. It's gathering momentum. It's gathering speed. And our Gajendra is once more, having been static for a while, he's once more expanding. All these realizations are coming back to him. He's making the point. He says to Krishna, how much with my mind can I cry for you? My mind is limited. How much with my mind can I think of the unlimited? How can the limited mind grasp the unlimited activities of the Lord? How much with my limited tongue, which is just little sparks of friction coming from the banging together of vocal cords, how much with this poor, weak tool of larynx and vocal cords, how much can this limited tool glorify the unlimited Lord? So none of these, the eyes can't see you properly, the mind can't hold you, the tongue can't even begin to describe you. But what I can do is make the effort is make the effort, is comport and conduct myself in such a way that you see me. I give a crude example. In England, every year there are knighthoods that are bestowed by the Queen or the King, as the case may be. So if you're a citizen of England, there's nothing you can do to force, there's nothing you can do to get to earn that knighthood. There's nothing you can do, no amount of money you can pay, whereby you force the king to put the sword on your shoulders and call you Sir Alex or um, damn Ethel or whatever it is. Um, but 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 what is within your power is to be a good citizen, to help other people's out, to do your level best to make sure the state is strong and powerful and robust. In other words, what you can do is put yourself in the pool of those who are eligible for knighthood, for eligible special recognition, special honor, special awards, and special favors. At the end of the day, you can't force any of this, but you can ensure that you act in such an ideal, exemplary way that you're eligible for knighthood. And you can't force it, but you can be fairly confident that if you make a major contribution, an ongoing major contribution to the well-being of your state, sooner or later, you will be recognized. So Gajendra is saying, I know that my speech is inadequate, woefully. My mind is insufficient to think of you. My eyes are too weak to ever um, behold you. But my hope is that some or other, because you have special consideration for your devotees, you break all your rules, you make all the exceptions in the rare case where there is a devotee with a pure heart glorifying you in sincere affection and helplessness. Gajendra is summarizing this 10th verse of the 3rd chapter of the 8th canto by saying, my dear Lord, in a word, my hope is that before the crocodile gets me, by your grace, by your mercy, I get you. So please kindly come and show me your very beautiful form. I know that that form is invisible. And I know that that form, while it can see me, 999,909 living beings, conditioned souls, can't see you. According to their desires, you're respecting their desires. But I'm putting myself forward as one who is eligible for your mercy. Therefore, please come and reveal to me your beautiful form. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's more. You know what? There's always more. There's always more. 150, 556 sessions. And guess what? There is always more. So not only were we expanding ourselves by the grace of the Lord, but those of you who listened had certain thoughts, relevant thoughts, and expressed those in poetry and rhyme. So here we have Vallabha Chandra, a long one this morning, longer than normal. From Krishna we are never apart, as he is hidden within the heart. From Krishna we are never apart, as he is hidden within the heart. He can reveal himself if he will, but you can't make him appear through any austerity or skill. He can reveal himself if he will, but you can't make him appear through any austerity or skill. We have chosen, this is an important point, we have chosen to make him hidden. So he grants that for which we bidden. We have chosen to make him hidden, so he grants that for which We can't reach him on our own, no matter how much we own or groan or let our piety be shown. But if through devotion we want to give up attachment to this fleshy suit, we may, through his mercy, see the boy with a flute. Nice. Wow. Those nice two lines are powerful and a little bit pleasantly unexpected. But if through devotion we want to give up attachment to this fleshy suit, we may, through his mercy, see the boy with the flute. That's a fleshy suit is a reference to this body being like a convict's striped suit. Nice. Thank you, Vallabha Chandra. Here's another much shorter gem from Vallabha Chandra. There is so much to say when Gajendra prays. How many words? 156 45-minute sections. How many? A half an hour when I prepare a talk, a half an hour talk for Sunday. It generally weighs in around 3,500 words. So a 45-minute session is going to be half again. It's going to be about 5,000 words, maybe 5,500. So 5,000, got a little calculator, 5,000 times 155. So in this series, we've spoken 775,000 words. Just trying to understand what Gajendra's words are, and then Vallabha Chandra, he's generated words also being inspired. You also have had thoughts, you're thinking in words. It's Gajendra spoke 28 verses. Then the great saints and sages looked at those verses, they analyzed it, they broke it down. And from those 28 verses, there are volumes and volumes of commentary. And then other commentaries looked at the commentaries and they broke those down. And from the commentaries, there's commentaries on the commentaries, and there's volumes and volumes and volumes. And then we come along and we get bits of information from here and there, and we collate it from other sources. And then we speak. And then every time we speak, every time I give a talk, I get an idea for 5 other talks. And every time I give one of those 5 other talks, I get another idea for another 5 talks. And you get ideas, and Vallabha Chandra gets ideas, and he writes, and you think, and you have a potential to write. See how we're at, and what this adds up to is that we're in the spiritual energy. You're in the material energy when you know that everything is dragging you down, contracting you, you're getting stuck. It's the same old stale staticness. But you're in the spiritual energy when you can't wait to get out of bed in the morning to greet the day that the Lord has made, to utter with your voice in an inadequate way, but hopefully with devotion, some prayers, to see the deity form of the Lord, to think of the Lord, to share that, to share it. And in sharing it, you expand your own realizations. The recipients expand theirs. That's how you know you're rightly situated. So I'm here to tell you, you're on the right path. Keep listening, keep tuning in, keep chanting, keep moving forward. Krishna will take up the slack from within the heart. They'll take up the slack, he'll carry what you lack, and he will get you back home, back to God. So we'll be back next Wednesday. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And just before we sign off here, let us say Hare Krishna to Anjani Hanuman. Nice name, Anjani Hanuman. I don't know where the Anjani Hanuman is from. Veena Binu from Calgary. Vallabha Chandra, of course. our poet laureate, hi Bobby, Noah, Shali Shirley, Shali, Kelly, Haribo Kelly from Idaho. I'll take my leave, and I'm excited about going to the airport and meeting our new arrival, Dinath Roy, at noon, coming in from India to help us keep the Salt Lake Temple open so that we can expand our activities there and reach more people, deepen our own realizations. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.